welcome to my channel. My name is Kassandra, and today I wanted to share with you the stretching routine I've been doing every single day to rehabilitate my knees. So most of you probably know by now, but about 3.5 weeks ago now, I injured my knee as well as my thumb. So I had a trip and fall accident with my dog, and the consequence is that I got a bone bruise on my kneecap, and I also have a partial ACL tear as well as a bone bruise on my thumb. So many of you have been reaching out to me and asking what I'm doing to heal my knee, and you've been requesting some yoga classes that have to do with healing knee injuries. I was pretty resistant to putting any sequences online because the truth is knee injuries are so varied. What works for me and what helps me could be the thing that makes your injury worse. And especially because this is online, it's not like I'm next to you and I can't give you personal guidance. I just want to be straightforward and say, this is what I'm doing to heal my very particular injury. So part of my rehabilitation process has been to stretch as well as strengthen. So I'm going to do a strengthening routine that I'll have on my channel for you guys soon. But today I wanted to film the stretching routine because I'm due to do it today anyway. So part of what happens with the knee, especially for me with the bone bruise, was that for about 2.5 weeks, I wasn't able to bend my knee at all. My knee always had to be straight. And what happened with that is that if you keep your limb in one position for an extended period of time, for 2.5 weeks, I lost a ton of flexibility, I lost all my strength, and everything got extremely stiff. My quads, my hip flexors, and my hamstrings were almost stuck in this position. So it's been a huge journey for me to try to gain back that range of motion and the flexibility that I have in my knee. So it is crucial for me to stretch multiple times a day, every single day. And I'm not gonna lie, it's quite painful, but every day I make a little bit more progress, so I know that it's worth it. And then the other part of it is strengthening, but I'm gonna cover that in another video. The stretches that I do all have to do with releasing the hip flexors, really working the quads as best as I can, and also opening up the hamstrings. Now, because I have a bone bruise, I can't do things like tabletop pose. I can't put any direct pressure on the knee, so I have to get a little bit creative with my props and find other ways. Obviously, the best thing to do would be to do a low lunge with a quad stretch. I wish I could do that so badly, but I can't just yet. However, before we get into the sequence, I wanted to share with you a little prop I bought online. I just got this. These are called yoga jellies. I have the link to those in the description box. But because I have a bone bruise on my thumb as well as on my knee, as I'm rehabilitating, this is just an extra way to give yourself some cushioning. So as I'm healing and as I'm able to bear more and more weight on my knee, this is what I'm going to be using a lot more. So if you are healing, I would definitely recommend these. It's just a great way to give yourself a little bit more padding on your joints. Okay, I've given as many disclaimers as I possibly can. Let's just get into the sequence. I use 2 blocks for every time I do my stretches. First thing I always start off with is a straightforward passive forward fold. This is a great way to relieve the spine and the muscles in the back, but it's also a great way to lengthen the hamstrings. I like to begin with the hamstrings and then I get deeper into the front of the thigh. So legs, feet about hip width distance apart, a little bit of a bend, always, always, always a good idea. You do not want to hyperextend, especially if you have an ACL tear, partial or full. You need to make sure you're not locking your joints and not going past the full range of motion. So activation a little bit and then a little bend, and then you can just soften into it. And because I'm super stiff from not being, so much inactivity, I am propping myself up with a block or 2 underneath the forehead. And I like to hold this one for about 10 breaths or so. It's just a great way to prime my body for everything else I'll be doing afterwards. So generally speaking, I'll do this little stretching sequence and then I'll go into my strengthening routine. And then usually after the strengthening routine, I'll do a few stretches as well. It's pretty much a never-ending process. So you want to find your edge, a little bit of sensation, but not so much that it becomes overwhelming. Just breathing deeply. Relaxing your shoulders, your chest, your upper back. And now being mindful of your low back, just engage your arms, push your hands into the floor, and slowly come on up inch by inch. So after this forward fold, every single time, the next thing that I do is supported bridge. So supported bridge is great for me because I do need to work at getting this 90-degree angle in my knee, which has been quite difficult. So have both blocks close by. I'm gonna start off with my just one block, and then I usually add on. So trying to bend the knee as much as I can, and then pushing into the feet. You can lift the pelvis up, and I'm trying to put weight into my right leg. I've lost a lot of strength on my right side. And now from here, I take a few breaths just in supported bridge with my knees bent. And this for me, I feel nothing in my left leg because my left leg is healthy, my left knee is healthy, but I get a big pull and a big stretch in my right kneecap just from doing this. So simply breathe into it. And actually, one thing I like about these jellies, one way that I've been using them, is my tailbone kind of sticks out. So I like to give it a little bit of padding just by putting it on the block there. And now to get deeper into this pose and start opening up into the hip flexors, because these have gotten quite tight and it targets the quads a little bit, you can straighten your legs. Now you do need to be careful here. For some people, this causes a ton of compression and a ton of pinching in the low back, which you do not want. You're already injured in one place. Don't make it worse by injuring yourself somewhere else. So you might need to lower the block, or you might need to just stay in the first variation with your knees bent. Just a few breaths here, just to check out how the hip flexors are feeling. Letting the hips be heavy. Okay, and now to really ramp things up, you can bend your knees. So for me, the next motion that I'm gonna do is to get real deep into the hip flexors, almost as if I was doing a low lunge, but I'm doing it lying down on my back. So back into supported bridge, I'm gonna put my block on its lowest level, and I'm gonna take another block and stack it on top, just so I have my hips up even higher, and I'll keep that jelly in its place. And stretching into the right hip flexors and into my right knee, I'm straightening the right leg, and then I'm drawing the left knee in towards my chest. So you might need to use a strap for this. You can hold on either to the back of the thigh or the front of the shin, whatever is accessible. And this has been a true lifesaver for me. It's a very similar sensation to a low lunge, but without having any weight bearing on the knee. It's just a beautiful, beautiful thigh stretch. So this is probably what I do 3-4 times a day for sure. There's even a way that you can do it on your bed. So I do it in the morning and at night before I go to bed. Try to reach out with your right leg, with your right heel. Again, not hyperextending, just breathing into it. I try to make these moments on the mat like a healing meditation. So sending plenty of good vibes to my knee, to my thumb, to all the other injured parts of me, to all the aches and pains, just breathing into them. And now switching sides, so you can let go of that left leg and extend the left leg out. And if you're like me and you have an ACL tear, it might be hard to bend your right knee. So this is part of the work that I have to do here, is regaining my full range of motion. So trying to get my heel to touch the back of my thigh. So holding onto the thigh, it's fairly easy for me to pull the knee in towards the chest, but then I like to use my hand to support the calf muscle and just slowly lower that foot down as low as I can. And having the support of my arm there ensures that I don't accidentally go too far, because it is quite painful if I do go too far. And the longer and the more I do this pose, the more range of motion I end up gaining. Just breathe through it. And you can play around with your hands. Feel your breath go all the way down into your belly. So because for me it is my right knee, I usually like to use this opportunity to bend and straighten the leg. So I've lost pretty much all strength trying to go upwards. So that's kind of the hardest thing for me. So this is a good opportunity for me to practice just nice and slow, controlled movements where I'm bending my knee and I'm able to stretch into the quads, into the kneecap. So working on my range of motion, but then also working on the strength as I just slowly extend and try to reach the toes up. And I'll just do about 2 more or so. Whew, and that's plenty. Okay, let's come back. Supported bridge. And we're gonna push into the feet, lift the hips up, slide your props out of the way. And just let yourself unwind here. So I'm gonna keep the props somewhere close by within grabbing distance. I'm getting back into the hamstrings. So pulling right knee into the chest, interlacing fingers behind the back of the right thigh, just extending it straight up and letting the left leg extend down to the floor. You might be able to move your palms up towards the calf, the ankle, the toes. So again, I am purposefully keeping a little bit of a bend here in this knee. I really have to be careful not to go too straight. For you, it might be different. And I like to sway it slightly, very slowly. So I'm opening it out to the side to get deeper to the inner groin, which has been really, really tight. And then bringing it back into center and over crossing just a tad. Breathing throughout. And let's overcross it completely into a lying spinal twist. So the right leg goes all the way out to the left. One of my all-time favorite poses. Right arm goes out to the right. This is a great way to stretch from the glute into the IT band, down the side of the leg, so also into the knee, as well as into the hamstrings. But it is quite an intense pose. If it's too much for you, you can just keep your right knee bent and do like a regular twist. I'm just going to take about 5 breaths here. And we'll release. So going to Shavasana, slide the right leg down. And we'll go and do the other side, so not neglecting the left leg. Interlacing behind the back of the left hamstrings, just taking your little hamstring stretch, and you can slide your palms further up the leg. And same thing as before, I like to get a little sway in. So left hamstrings are always tighter for me. And when you're ready, you can overcross. So this time it's your left leg that's going to drop to the right. Reach your left arm out. Try to ground your left shoulder on the mat. Collarbones facing up. One more full deep breath here. And release the pose. Okay, from here, bend the knees. I'm moving into half happy baby pose. So this has been really helpful for me and for my knee. So pulling the thigh into the belly, you can either just hold on to the back of your thigh, you can hold on to the shin or the ankle. If you can, you're trying to maintain a 90-degree angle in that knee. And it's super important that you flex your foot. So whatever your hip is doing, your knee should be doing the same thing and your ankle should also be doing the same thing. So we want everything to be rotating out at the same degree. Flexing the foot is one way that we can protect our knee. And then I'm keeping the elbow to the inside of the leg just to try to push that knee open a little bit. And I like to let my left knee drop down to the side, just so I'm not rolling over to my right side too much. And I'm making this more of a passive stretch by relaxing my right leg. But every now and then I do make it active and I push my foot into my hand a little bit, just for a few breaths to see how it feels. So you can play with that at home. And pulling the knee down. And from here, bring your left knee to point straight up to the sky, taking reclined pigeon pose. This is a really hard one for me, but one that I really have to work on. So crossing the right ankle as close to the top of that left thigh as possible. Again, flex your foot. And then I'm trying to push my knee away from me. This might be more than enough. I remember the first week or so, this is all I could do. Now I have a bit more range of motion, so I'm able to pick that leg up off the floor. You can either hold on to the back of the thigh or the front of your shin and just draw it in. This should feel really yummy, especially if you haven't stretched in a while. I know for me, when I was on bed rest, it's just really great to be able to get into the glutes again. And you know, injuries are very humbling. I used to, when I did this pose, my foot would just rest flat on my chest. And to be perfectly honest, for me, this was one of those poses where I didn't really feel much. I was just naturally flexible in this pose. It was never really a challenge. And now my foot is far away from me, and it's an intense, intense stretching sensation. So it's interesting to note all the changes your body goes through when it's healing. Just give it one more little squeeze, and then I'll come into my final stretch on this side. So keep the figure 4 shape with your legs. Let your left foot come back down to the floor. And from here, this is an IT band stretch, really great to get into the quads and into the glutes. So keeping this shape, you're just gonna let your left thigh drop down to the floor. For some of you, the right foot will come down to the floor like it does for me. For others, it's gonna be quite high up, in which case you can just put a block underneath you. Because my foot slips a lot, I'm actually just gonna put a jelly, the yoga jelly, underneath my foot. It's rubber, so it kind of holds it in place. And then remember, what the hip is doing, you also want the knee and the ankle to be doing. So what I don't want to happen here is I don't want my knee to be buckling in. That's not really safe. I'm trying to push that knee to face up towards the sky. And you can either hold on to your ankle, or you can use your hand to very, very, very lightly push the thigh away from you. And then the right arm goes out to the side. So again, this is one of those poses where my left knee used to be really high up and my foot was so close to me, and now I've lost that range of motion. But every day that we do these stretches, I really feel for you guys that are injured. I know it's really hard, it's really frustrating, but every day that we take care of ourselves and put in the effort to rehabilitate, we get that much closer to the flexibility and the strength we were used to having before then. This is where the practice of yoga really gets juicy. And just a few deep breaths here. And let's release. Lift the legs all the way back up, very carefully uncross the legs. And even though my left knee isn't injured, I still want to balance things out. So I'll go do that little sequence of 3 poses on the other side, starting with half happy baby. So left knee to your chest, stacking the ankle over the top of your knee, holding on to whatever is accessible to you, and then wrapping the hand around the foot as you draw the knee down. So because my right knee is the one that's injured, it's a little bit harder for me to just plop that right thigh open. I need to curl the toes up so I keep my foot flexed, and then I rotate out. And you might need to play with the angle of that foot so that you're not causing more damage and not injuring yourself, of course. Bring your right knee to point up to the sky, reclined pigeon pose. You cross your left ankle over the top of the thigh, flex the foot, push the knee away from you, and then you're drawing the right thigh into the chest. So again, this is another one where I can't let my heel drop down towards the thigh. I need to keep it a little bit more engaged than that. So this is another pose where I like to practice extending and then very slowly releasing. And by having my hands in between my thigh and my shin, or my thigh and my calf, I'm able to control the descent of that right leg. Breathing through it. I do this, more range of motion I get. Oh, I'm almost there. Ooh. So now I'm in my full range of motion. And I'll be honest, this is the furthest I've ever been. I practiced yesterday and I was about 2 inches higher. So I'm just gonna linger in it for a moment or two, just to test that boundary and test that edge. Ooh, okay, that's enough. All right, let's let the right foot come back down to the floor, and we'll take that IT band stretch so the figure 4 shape in your legs remains the same. You're just gonna let your right thigh drop down to the side, either on a block, or you can let your left foot come down to the floor. So remember, we're trying to bring our kneecap to point up to the sky, and you can always change what your right leg is doing here. Mine's a little sore right now, so I'm just gonna straighten it. And you don't have to push with your right hand. That's just the variation that I prefer with the left arm out. Let's release. So I generally don't do a shavasana after this because I usually go into my strengthening routine. So I'm just gonna lift up. And one thing that I like to test once I come back up is to see if I can cross my legs a little bit more. So at the beginning of the video, I had a block propped under, and now, oh, look at that. So that means it was a good stretching session. That's usually what happens to me. So at the end, I'm able to do a little bit more than what I could do at the beginning of the video. So there's still a bit of a gap, whereas before I was touching the floor, but I mean, already this is better than what it was, I don't know, 25 minutes ago, however long this video even is. So I hope you found this sequencing, this tutorial, somewhat helpful. I don't know if it'll be helpful for you because again, this is just what I'm personally doing to help to heal my own injury. Everyone's injuries are so different and the severity is going to be different and the parts of the knee affected are going to be different. So super important that you work with your therapists and your doctors to come up with a plan that works for you. So this is only half of what I do. Stretching is super important. We do need to, let go of any tension that we have in our muscles and in the fascia and in the connective tissues, the joints, all that stuff. But then strengthening is a super huge part of rehabilitation. So look out for my strengthening video in the very near future. I'll make sure to have that on YouTube for those of you who want to heal along with me. I want to say a very big thank you to everyone. I've gotten so many nice messages and emails and comments. You guys have been so supportive. This has been a rough go for me. I've never had this kind of injury before, so it's been challenging, but at the same time, I'm really learning a lot, and it's in a way, if I really look for the silver lining, it's been kind of fun to figure out this puzzle of my body. You know, I'm trying to see it as like a puzzle I have to solve, or a mystery I have to solve, of how am I going to heal my body. And I'm really interested to see if I will be able to go back to my full practice the way I did before. But, you know, only time will tell. If you are struggling with a knee injury, my heart goes out to you. I know how challenging it is, and I wish you lots of healthy healing in the future, and hopefully it will be a speedy recovery. If you're new to my channel, please do subscribe. I put out new full-length classes every single week. Thank you again so much, yogis. Namaste.